What if I told you QCP finessed some of rap's biggest stars out of over $1 billion? What if I told you he built his empire on the backs of the very artists who trusted him? And what if I told you his rise to power started with betrayal, manipulation, and deals nobody saw coming? The $1 billion illusion. On paper, Pierre P. Thomas looks like one of hip-hop's greatest success stories. He's the founder of Quality Control, the architect behind the rise of Migos, Lil Baby, City Girls, and several other chart-defining artists. A quiet, calculated executive who transformed raw Atlanta street energy into a global billion-dollar music powerhouse. From the outside, it looks like a textbook win. Talent discovered, stars launched, history made. But behind the plaques, the viral hits, and the massive valuation, there's a question that refuses to disappear. How does so much money consistently flow upward, while so many artists later claimed they felt trapped, underpaid, or forced to spend millions just to regain control of their own work? Because when you stop following the marketing and start following the contracts, the numbers tell a different story. One that isn't about fame, but leverage. And that story didn't begin with Quality Control. It started years earlier, before the label ever existed. Before the boardroom, QCP didn't come from corporate boardrooms or music industry internships. He came from the streets of Atlanta, a world where trust is rare, leverage is everything, and survival depends on reading people before they make a move. In that environment, mistakes aren't just costly, they're dangerous. By his own words, stepping into the music business was about escaping that life and securing a future for himself and his family. And to be clear, there's nothing wrong with wanting out. Growth isn't the issue. What makes P's rise controversial isn't where he came from. It's how those same street instincts later appeared in his business strategy. Because the mindset that teaches you how to protect yourself, control situations, and minimize risk on the streets translates almost perfectly into contract negotiations. The rules change, but the principles don't. And unlike many artists entering the industry blind, P recognized that connection early and built his entire approach around it. The real genius move. When QC was sold in a massive deal, valued in the hundreds of millions, the winners were clear. Ownership cashed out. But artists whose music created the value didn't receive the same upside. That's not illegal. That's not rare. But it reveals something crucial about how modern labels work. Artists generate value. Executives own systems, and systems get sold. Artists don't. Contracts that never end. Here's where Quality Control truly separated itself from almost every other label in hip-hop. Instead of relying on simple, short-term album deals, QC leaned into long-term, multi-layered agreements built around powerful distribution partnerships with major companies. On paper, it looked like stability. In reality, it created something much stronger: control. The effect was subtle, but massive. As long as QC remained operational and maintained its distribution relationships, many artist contracts could automatically renew. Leaving wasn't just complicated, it was expensive. Buyouts, penalties, and lost masters turned freedom into a financial minefield. And none of this was hidden in secret handshakes or backroom conversations. It was written plainly into the contracts. The problem is that most young artists don't truly understand terms like in perpetuity, renewal clauses, or cross-collateralization when they sign. Those words sound abstract at first, but years later, when success arrives, they realize those clauses never expired. And by then, the leverage is gone. The loyalty strategy. What made Quality Control's system especially effective wasn't just the paperwork or the legal language buried in contracts. It was emotional architecture. P never positioned himself as a distant executive or a traditional boss. He presented himself as family, a mentor, a big homie, a protector who understood where these artists came from and what they were up against. Artists weren't just signing deals, they were joining a circle, a brotherhood that promised loyalty, safety, and shared success in an industry known for exploitation. And psychologically, that changes everything. When business starts to feel like family, the guard comes down. Questions feel disrespectful. Doubt feels like betrayal. In that environment, artists are less likely to bring in outside lawyers, less likely to push back, and more likely to trust verbal assurances over fine print. That trust becomes the real binding agent, because once emotion replaces scrutiny, leverage quietly locks into place. Lil Baby, the center of gravity. No artist shows Quality Control's internal power dynamic more clearly than Lil Baby. When Baby came home from prison, He wasn't a star, a brand, or a safe investment. He had raw talent and hunger, but no leverage, no infrastructure, and no position within the industry. QC gave him structure, exposure, and a clear runway. They turned momentum into machinery. In return, Baby gave QC everything else: relentless work ethic, unmatched consistency, hit after hit, album after album. He evolved from a regional rapper into one of the biggest artists on the planet. And with every platinum plaque Baby earned, Quality Control's valuation quietly exploded alongside him. Here's the part most people miss. Label equity grows faster than artist income. Even while Baby was winning, the company built on his success was becoming exponentially more valuable than any single royalty check. The catalog mattered more than the charts. And eventually, someone came to buy that value. The deal that changed everything. When major industry players look at a label, they aren't buying logos, offices, or personalities. They're buying catalogs, the long-term revenue streams that generate money, whether an artist releases new music or not. By the time Quality Control reached its peak valuation, Lil Baby's catalog had become the crown jewel. His streams, touring impact, and cultural relevance were driving a massive percentage of the label's underlying value. Reports and leaked conversations suggested serious offers were on the table, deals that could have fundamentally reshaped Baby's financial future and ownership position if handled differently. But loyalty complicated everything. Baby wasn't approaching the moment like an exit strategist calculating maximum leverage. He was thinking like a partner protecting relationships. And that's where the imbalance became impossible to ignore. Because while partnerships are built on trust, acquisitions are built on numbers. And the numbers don't care about loyalty. Who actually got paid? When Quality Control was sold in a massive deal valued in the hundreds of millions, the winners were immediately clear. Ownership cashed out, securing generational wealth from the system they built. But the artists whose music actually created that value didn't receive the same upside. Their songs powered the catalog, yet the exit rewards didn't flow equally. That isn't illegal. It isn't even rare. It's how modern labels are designed to function. Artists generate value through creativity, culture, and labor. Executives, meanwhile, own the systems that package, distribute, and monetize that value. And when those systems become valuable enough to sell, it's the systems that get bought, not the artists who made them powerful in the first place. Buying your freedom. As QC artists matured, something else started happening quietly. Several reportedly paid large sums to regain control of their music. Think about that for a second. You create the product, you make it successful, then you pay again just to own it. From a business standpoint, it's brilliant. From an artist standpoint, it feels like extortion. And once that door opens, there's no going back. Lawsuits, public disputes, social media unfollows. Over time, cracks began forming in QC's image of unity. Artists who once praised the label started questioning contracts. Negotiations turned tense, and loyalty stopped being enough. Because once artists realize their success doesn't equal control, everything changes. The billion-dollar blueprint. Here's the brutal truth. QCP didn't break the law. He didn't scam anyone in the courtroom sense. But make no mistake, he finessed the system, manipulated contracts, and turned trust into leverage. Hungry artists gave him their talent, sweat, and loyalty. He gave them structure and locked in control. Catalogs, not careers, were the real payday. Valuations, not plaques, were the prize. He played by the rules, but the rules were designed to make him untouchable. That's not street hustle. That's cold, calculated corporate finesse. And while some walked away rich, others were left counting what could have been over $1 billion gone. Why this story matters. This isn't just about QC. It's about the entire music industry. Because QC didn't invent these tactics. They perfected them in the streaming era. And now, this model is everywhere, which means the next generation of artists faces the same trap, unless they understand the game. QCP built $1 billion empire without ever being the face, by controlling contracts instead of careers. The real question isn't whether he was smart. He was. The question is this: how many more artists are walking into the same system, thinking loyalty will protect them?